a couple of 31 goods which are mostly considered essential. Now let's look at a couple of those as we talk about exactly where we are, and I'm going to tell you exactly what we're talking about that this morning. Number one, fuel, which has already been adjusted. You might be spending more on your alcohol. You might be spending more on your gas. You might be spending more on your drinks as well. I'm talking about soft drinks. You also might be spending more already on your drinking water. Now, remember last week or a fortnight ago, we actually did speak about how the Kenya Association of Manufacturers did write to Kerry, telling them, look, at this time now, we are trying to come back to business. You cannot go back and review some of the prices of these goods that are actually manufactured here locally because, number one, they said the economy needs to be cushioned from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Number two, that either way, because of the reduced economic activity, you are going to actually make people not spend on these goods. And at the end of the day, you're going to lose your tax. So this morning, let's look at the performance of excise duty because yes, we have had that revised. Now, if you look at 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, all the way to 2018, 2019, I'll show you one wave that Kerry has been relying on excise duty. And if you look at 2017, 2018, that's when it was on its highest, but we don't expect that to be reflected in 2019, 2020, because we don't know exactly what the effect has been on the economy so far. But regardless, because Kerry, in the first 2 months of the new year, they're already hitting misses in their targets. And it looks as if that law that regulates the Commissioner of Taxes to just review and write a memo to the National House is going to be in effect next year. But before that, we have to see Kerry really trying to come in and get something out of you. All right, what are we waking up to this morning as well? I'll tell you what it is. Now, some governors from tea-producing counties are saying some of the draft regulations that were put in place to actually ratify the tea sector in the country are, for lack of a better word, useless. Now, they want to move to court to make sure that they're actually stamped out. And this morning, we are going to talk about some of them. But the proposal to have KTDA go back to the government is exactly what they don't want to hear about. There are so many of them, and yes, we can talk about KTDA being good or not good for some farmers. There are people who stand for either side, but it looks as if the governors from tea producing counties are saying we must have our last say in whatever happens in the tea sector. So what is the outlook of the tea sector in the country? Let's look at the annual volume of tea exports from the Metropole data harvest. If you look at 2015 all the way to 2020, the trend is that we have been getting more out, and you do know what is happening right now is that within this 2020 period so far, we do have a leeway to actually go deeper into the international market because of the effects of the coronavirus pandemic. We've already had those conversations here on Business. So let's talk about how much we are getting. Let's see that graph as well so that we can actually make sense of it this morning. From 2015 all the way to 2020, you can actually see 2019 was one of our worst, and I will tell you why. We were talking about an oversupply of tea in the global market, something that was sort of corrected as we were getting into 2020 because of the effects of the coronavirus pandemic. But on a general, yes, we have been quite stable in the international market this morning. We're going to make sense of those numbers and ask, do the governors actually have a point by saying some of those rules in the tea regulations are, again, for lack of a better word, useless? Good. Now, let's talk about good news this morning, and I will move here so that we can actually talk about them. All right, now, PMI, the Purchasing Managers Index, and we're talking about Stanbic, is also telling us that we are experiencing the highest growth or response in the private sector in 2 years. Let's look at it now so we can actually also make sense of it this morning. They're saying that jump that you're seeing at 2020 is exactly what we're relying on by saying that things might be coming back to normalcy soon, and that the private sector is, among other things, rebounding back to activity, is getting the jobs back on. And that's a good thing this morning, because we're coming from the backdrop of the Labor Department telling us that we've lost 1.7 million jobs, and we have 3.7 million youth who are actually idle right now, with a lot of redundancies, with what is known to be more than 600 firms that have sent employees back home on leave. And we do hope that some of the biggest unprecedented measures that we did see some of the corporates taking the economy, like tax cuts and also issuing job redundancies, are going to go low as we reopen the economy, because you know what it is right now. We do have that 2-month period for us to navigate the 60-day curfew.